Starting all over again, it's gonna be rough on us, but we're gonna make it. It's Breakfast with Bob.
Thank you, Poncho Man. Welcome back to Breakfast with Bob, the not quite Kona edition. My name is Bob Babbitt. We are brought to you by Hoka One One, by Credo Tri, Four Seasons Walleye, Challenge Daytona, Form Goggles, Canyon Bikes, Normatec, Amp Human, VeloFix, You Can, and of course our Challenge Athletes Foundation. Right before COVID hit, we sent out 3,921 grants totaling $5.9 million to keep Challenge athletes in the game of life through sport. Our next guest, the co-founder and the CEO of Super League, Mr. Michael Dulce, joins us. Michael, how the heck you doing?
I'm doing well, Bob. Doing well. Back in lockdown here in London, but doing well. Used to it by now, so all right.
Yes. Well, it's funny because I was looking back. You had your Jersey race in 2019, and you had gale force winds and had to cancel everything. You're probably thinking, this is the worst it's ever going to get.
Yeah.
Then 2020 hits. How many events have you had to cancel this year?
Well, as everybody, we started postponing. Being optimistic, we started postponing. I think the first one we postponed was our event in Saudi Arabia, NEOM, that we had announced. Then we went on and postponed Bali. I think in total we postponed 10 events this year. Postponed and cancelled 10 events this year. But yeah, we are very proud that we realized the arena games, which I think we worked hard on, and is the one thing that the whole team kind of lived up to and say, yeah, we did something, and
Right.
It was something cool this year. So yeah.
And a lot of people tried to do virtual events. Did you guys did part virtual, part live? How did that work for you?
Well, I mean, yeah, for us, obviously at Super League, we focus on the professionals and professional sport, right? So having a professional race done virtually is fairly difficult to create a good emotion, to create a competitive field and get some inspirational content out, right? So that's why we ended up, we partnered up with Zwift and said, can we bring a blended event?
Right.
There's not so many athletes. There's not so many athletes involved. We had developed the protocols and the concepts to be able to do it in a socially distanced way and in a COVID-proof environment, so to say. And we raised 10 athletes, male, 10 athletes, female, on our blended events, which was great because you still have the competitiveness in the pool. You see them face off. You can really see the pain and the sweat of the athletes and in the same environment, but it's obviously not the real racing as one would do in a non-COVID environment, right? Yeah.
So when you look at the financial model for Super League, your traditional triathlon model is people make their living off of participants, right? Off of age groupers.
Yes.
The Ironman model and for years and years and years. The Super League model is different. It is based on the pros. So how does that revenue model work? Is it all from rights fees? How do you generate revenue?
No, rights, predominantly sponsorship and corporate host venue fees, a little bit of participation, and we have participation as mass participation, but we also have a strong product that is continuing to develop for corporate participation, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say there's two elements, right? So there is, first of all, in Super League, we're indeed banking on evolving the sport to become more of a spectator sport also, and obviously that requires a little bit of investment, but we've come a long way, right? And by the main KPI then in the beginning is how can we grow an audience and how can we engage an audience, right? And that is not only broadcast, but that is also very much on digital, and it's basically also on first-party data that we can receive, right? And ultimately we start talking to brands and say, well, we have a very layered approach. We are audience specialists. We have good reach, but we also have deep engagement, and we know very well who our people are, and they're real people, right? They're people we can engage with, interact with, etc. So that's one approach. The other approach that we have in terms of a revenue model is, I mean, since year and day, everybody in triathlon is saying, like, triathlon is the new golf. Triathlon is a new golf. There's such interesting demographic participating in triathlon, but I think and from a personal experience, I love Ironman, I love participating, but you don't, or, not many people, or very little amount of people, leverage triathlon as a place to network, a place to interact, a place to build relationship, a place to do business, right? And I think we are developing, and we've done a product in Jersey already, where hospitality and corporate racing is done slightly different, where it's not just an individual experience where you get a nice bike rack, but then you're off and you do basically the same race as anybody else, but develop it as something where you can actually invite your clients, your business partners, and network, and have an experience that is much more, that encourages communication, where you spend some time together and you can talk about business, build out those relationships a bit more than just traditionally your individual experience, right? That let's say currently is how triathlon is experienced, right? So, and that is for us a second revenue driver, where it becomes a place where business is done, and we engage with corporates, and they pay a premium because of that experience we deliver, right?
Gotcha.
So yeah, and I think that's the cornerstones where we are building on, and beyond that, obviously, once we have elevated the sport into that spectator realm, then yeah, there's other possibilities feasible, right?
Well, and also this is a great day and age because you can create television-like experience online.
Yeah.
And you guys have done a phenomenal job of creating, great racing online and people are viewing in. In terms of the numbers of viewers that you've been getting, did that surprise you how quickly that grew?
Well, I think I was surprised to see how well we performed with the Arena Games. I think the steady growth of let's say the first event we ever did in Hamilton Islands, and since then it has been a very solid and steady growth, and we've seen great appetite. Our followers and our engagement on social media, actually also the viewers on our own YouTube channels, that's been steady growth, and we're very happy with that. Surprised, I always kind of, I mean, I go back to the days of the early 90s when I started watching triathlon. I mean, a lot of people were engaged in it, right? People watched it because it is a great sport, right? Now it's just difficult to watch it because there's not much out there. So I personally, I was always saying, well, these fans exist. We just need to give them something. So I wouldn't say I was surprised. I was happy that it was reconfirmed, but I wouldn't say I was surprised. I was a little bit more surprised to see how hungry the typical triathlon fans were for content, and how quickly they converted to something that is completely new, like with the Arena Games, right? Because we had done some kind of more traditional Zwift virtual racing, but yeah, and that's okay. But the difference between the traditional Zwift racing and the engagement and the viewers we had for that and the Arena Games is massive. It's and I was surprised to see that jump, how big it was, and how well received the Arena Games was. Yeah.
So moving forward, more Arena Games?
For sure. I think it's a great product. I like the fact also that we were able to bring athletes from different distances together, right? We had Anna Hock competing, Javier Gomez was competing, and a lot of the young talent, right? So that I think that is great, and I think this kind of extremely short but very submersive, immersive concept leads to that, right? So definitely more Arena Games. They will exist, for me, they exist as a separate product. It's outside of our championship series, but it's definitely something that we can establish in different venues. And we're already actively planning some of the events for beginning 2021.
So it was probably a year ago when we first chatted about an event in the US for Super League. And, and number one event on my mind was Malibu. I'm like, if you're going to be someplace, Malibu will be an event because of the celebrities, because of the corporate teams, because of the studio teams. It has so much panache, and with all the celebs that have been there over the years. But you guys just announced, I think yesterday, that finally the purchase was completed. How exciting is that now that you've got a foothold in the US with really a AAA event?
Yeah, very excited, very excited. And indeed, you said it. You said this is the one. I mean, obviously, you know Super League quite well also, and you said,
Yeah.
okay, this is the one that fits, right? Exactly like you say. And then it's exactly the points like you say. It's a short distance race. It's a AAA event. It's been along for a long time. Super League is about short distance. So if we go to the US, we have to marry up with a short distance event. It has all the entertainment through its affiliations with the entertainment industry and the corporate races. We are also about entertainment. So yeah, it ticks all these boxes. And yeah, I think I'm very excited that we're able to make this deal, that we're able to use it as a use it. We will continue to nurture the event because I think it has so many fantastic upsides. Nonetheless, nothing less than what they're doing with the Children's Hospital. But I think it's a great jumping board for Super League also to get into the US and use it as a platform to showcase the professional short distance racing again, right? Yeah, I'm very excited about it.
Well, and the timing is perfect. It's September. Yeah,
Yeah.
so the eyes are all turning to triathlon. The field
Yeah.
always, the race always sells out with over 2 days with thousands of participants. And Jennifer Lopez, Matthew McConaughey, Zach Efron, Robin Williams was there in the past, Tom Cruse. There's really no event like it. How do you see incorporating the Super League racing into that? Or is that something you'll be working on over the next 9 months?
Yeah, we are aiming at announcing more details in the beginning. Traditionally, the Malibu Triathlon opens registrations in February, March timeframe, and so we're working towards that February, March timeframe. Ultimately, yeah, we want to obviously stay true what they have always delivered, and it's a top-notch AAA mass participation event on the classic distance and on the Olympic distance, right? So that will definitely maintain. We are indeed working on how can we best bring in the spectator element, which is then the Super League Pro event, right? And how, what time of day, etc., etc. We're working on that, and obviously we're then also looking at can we bring in some other elements of Super League to basically give a better experience to what is already there, right? So yeah, we're not changing anything, we're adding on, and I think overall it will be a greater experience of triathlon over the weekend in Malibu.
So you've got ITU with their WTS races, there's Ironman, there's PTO, there's USA obviously Super League. How do you guys work with all those different groups? Because it is a small sport and you don't want to be stepping on each other's toes. You want to all grow it. High tide floats all boats, right? So how do you coordinate so that you guys and everybody else are working together?
Yeah, well, it is. That's a challenge, but yeah, we have very good relationships, especially also with the ITU, which is probably our closest competitor, so to say, with the WTS series, right?
Yes.
We've signed up. I mean, just after we started our memorandum of understanding, and we still operate under that. And yeah, one of the main topics now is dates and scheduling, right? As Super League, I look at the Super Bowl as a role model there and say we want to make a series of championship events which is very close to each other and rolls back to back. So our aspiration is not to grow a large number of events, but our aspiration is to have a small number of events that is high impactful, right? Where that is very much focused on media and where people can kind of dial in for an 8-week period and have 5 events in 8 weeks, right? So, and there is the conversations with the ITU is, okay, when is that 8-week period? How do we not conflict on these dates? How does that fit with your schedule? And where the ITU has more of a year-round and separated events around the world, right? So I would say there is definitely a way to move forward on that. And ultimately, yeah, with all that investment we are doing in the sport, also we see the sport growing. We see the number of spectators growing. We see media interest growing, right? So I think communication is key, but I'm not too concerned that we can work it out. And I strongly believe in the growth of the sport, and then the number of events is very feasible.
So Chris McCormick, obviously intimately involved with Super League. Did Chris bring to the table? I think he's one of the great connectors, one of those guys who understands how to bring people together. What did he bring to the table for Super League?
Well, I mean, obviously he's a great connector, but he's much more than that. I think he's raced every single distance on the highest level, so he understands also what, excuse me, he understands also what real racing is, right? And I think at the beginning of Super League, the premise is how do we develop this into a spectator sport and a thorough knowledge of how you can make a good race.
Mm-hmm.
That is exciting, that is unpredictable, with great formats, is obviously very, very key, right? So I think in the creation of the formats and all of that, he's very, very important, has a lot of insights. And then obviously also making sure that all the athletes are on board of it, right? Because ultimately here we have an aspiration to create something new, which is entertaining. Great. I mean, that's about creating the format. The other thing is obviously you need the actors, right? You create a platform, but you have to have the actors in it, and without the actors, it's worth nothing, right? So what we are, and again, there Chris was able to connect and inspire and bring all the athletes on board and make sure that they understand and are aligned with the vision, right? So I think it's about the product. It's about creating a vision where the athletes can be aligned with and helping us introduce that to the athletes as such, right? So yeah, and in every step, basically in every step in the road, it's critical.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're all hoping COVID goes away and we have a vaccine and we're all back to normal by middle of 2021. What do you see assuming that, what do you see as the plan, like a 3 to 5 year plan for Super League? Is it to have 8 or 10 events in the States? Is it to be expanding to more and more events, or to really hone down on making the events that you have bigger and better?
I mean, I would say pre-COVID, I would have told you let's make 6 to 8 events that are really big and impactful in the right venues. Malibu being one of them. In Europe, we're also migrating to more less destination, more impactful venues. To give you an example, okay, we had Mallorca before. Now let's go to London, right? As you asked before, if we are going after bringing big business and sponsoring the events. If you have it, then you need to have your event in London, for an example, right? So we're not going after hundreds of events. We're staying with a handful of events, high impactful in the right locations, and then growing them and adding and fine tuning that product as such. Now, obviously, since COVID, we've also added the arena games to the mix, and I think the arena games is very interesting to us because it allows us to have something on year round, right? As I said previously, championship series, 8 to 10 weeks, let's say, and then a small number of events. Now, outside of that small number of events, we can also add the arena games as a different style of experience that is still very even more innovative, arguably, and brings and is very much in line with the Super League DNA and brings that Super League style racing in a very different concept. So where do I see it go? Indeed, have a bunch of arena games spread out in the year in interesting locations around the world. I'd like to see a couple in the US. I think it's a great product for the US. We're actively looking for venues in the US for the arena games. And then indeed our championship series, which the key markets for the championship series will be US and Europe, right? And get high profile events off the ground, but a handful, not expanding in the number of events, but go deep into the events, right? And then create content and elevate the athletes around those events into superstars.
Love it. Hey, Michael, thanks so much for taking time. Congrats on Malibu. I think that is a huge addition to Super League, and it's going to be fun to be there next September.
Yeah, I'm very, very, very excited about it. I think it's going to be such a great journey to go to the US and have Malibu as a spring block to showcase Super League to the US. That's fantastic.
Well, what I think is fascinating when you're at Malibu and you've got the biggest movers and shakers in an entertainment, seeing the best triathlon racing up front and personal, up close and personal. I think that just helps take the sport to another level, because now you're having eyeballs see it who might not have ever seen it from that perspective before.
Yeah, no, I agree, indeed, because indeed it is very much the spectator experience. If you're there on the ground, the emotion that comes through it, if you see the performance of these athletes, yeah, that's what inspires, right? So indeed, you're 100%.
All right, perfect. The co-founder, CEO of Super League, Mr. Michael Dost, has been our guest. Michael, thank you again for taking so much time. Always a pleasure to catch up. Congrats again on Malibu.
Thank you, Bob. Pleasure.
Thanks everybody for tuning in again. Breakfast with Bob, not quite Kona edition. We will catch you next time. See ya.